bringing you inside the USL Championship and League One.
Segmer's got there. Marquinhos! He's been knocking on the door. He knocks it down.
Diving into all the biggest stories and top headlines.
You are ripping and roaring today.
This is USL All Access.
It's almost impossible to recreate that level of magic.
With Mike Watts and Devin Kerr on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome, everybody, to a new edition of USL All Access on this Tuesday night. Devin Kerr is out walking the cat and a dog. Mike Watts, Emmett McConnell. As always, when I'm gone, when Devin's gone, there's no one we like to go to first. But that person was unavailable. So we have Joe Malfa with us. He is as much the voice of the championship as anybody. The GOAT of all Italians that happen to do commentary in USL. Joe, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hold on a second. I got to put that in my Twitter bio. GOAT of all Italians. That I'm doing that right now. That GOAT of all Italians calling soccer. I'm done. That's it. I will never peak from that title.
It was actually an excuse for me to bring up the fact that I feel like most people don't understand your aversion to tomatoes.
You know, it's something that exists. I'm certainly not alone in this battle. Sauce is cool. Tomatoes aren't. That's simple as that. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Don't like it.
It was vital that people better understand you before we really get going. Now you can take all of his hot takes with the proper grain of salt.
Hey, I do eat mayonnaise, though, at least. So that makes one of us.
Gross. Nasty. No chance. Joe, before we get going, do you have any USL Championship lore on that shelf behind you?
I do. I'll reach back and grab him here. This is Oakland Roots part owner Marshawn Lynch in bobblehead form.
I feel like it was a big loss not putting him in a golf cart.
Oh, that's a good point. Take care of y'all chickens, take care of y'all mentals, and get out to an Oakland Roots game is what Marshawn Lynch tells you.
I love it so much. Joe, let's chat about the week that was around the championship. There's plenty of news, plenty of results. We're going to chat about the upcoming round of 16 in the Open Cup that'll see Pittsburgh continue on and carry the flag for all of the lower division teams. Let's start with the fact that Miami might be decent.
You know, they might be. And I had them early this season, and when I saw their roster, because it's night and day from last year, I said, they actually have some players this year. Will they put it together? Different story. Answer so far has been yes, where coming into the year, they did something so experimental, where they pretty much just went out and signed a bunch of guys from Central American or Caribbean teams that have played in different CONCACAF tournaments or in their professional leagues in their countries, but have never played in the United States, or players from South America that have never played in the United States. And it was just a giant unknown, and they're clicking. And you can finally put the in their name again.
Well, all right, let's give it a minute. Let's get into the top four, and we can start adding the. That was me speaking for Devin. I should I speak for him? I don't know. But you beat the Rowdies in Jaeger Cup in penalties. You beat Loudoun United, who were top of the East coming into the weekend, 2-1. They're in playoff position. To be fair, hitting their point total from last year is not an achievement, but merely the lowest possible common denominator. I look at them, for one, like, kudos to them. I'm sure a lot of people saw the New Jersey sponsorship and they went, like, come on, guys, you're a professional sporting organization. Should you really be going with a candy company and saying, yeah, last year we sucked? I found it hilarious at the time. It is working. It makes me question a little bit of the management last year. We'll chat about that a little bit later. No one can question that roster last year was incapable of winning anything. That's just where they were at. I look at that Birmingham-Miami game, and I still can't believe I'm saying this, but it's at Pitbull Stadium this coming week. And maybe we're actually going to learn a little bit more here, because I want to see what they do against a team that maybe is still finding themselves and has more of a defensive identity at this stage than an offensive identity. And maybe that's going to give me a little bit more of a taste. The other side of it is, at 10 points, if they win this game, they've already outdone all of last season combined, which is nuts.
It's also one where how much are we going to learn, though? Because Birmingham had the one blip where they got the bounce after the coaching change, but ever since then, they haven't really done much either. So are we going to learn about it's this weird topsy-turvy world where going into the game, it's like, Birmingham, Miami, we're not going to learn much about the team who is maybe quote-unquote favored in this game, but it's almost always been Birmingham being that team going up against Miami and just ready to just pick up 3 points. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
I'm also wondering, and you look at Miami, even let's say they sit above the playoff line in another 2 months. I still think there's a lot of teams around USL that probably are going to, in the back of their head, go, well, this is a game we should win. And that's a dangerous place to be with a team that's overachieving.
No doubt. I mean, you can't go into any games, I don't think, anymore in this league with that mindset, with the way the parity is and the way that things have shifted. And I mean, the calls that we get to have every week with the coaches and picking their brains before the games, it's something that they're all talking about now, where the biggest evolution, I just had this conversation with Luke Spencer. We asked him the biggest difference between when he played to now. And he said, when I played, we could be going up against a team that was all teenagers from an MLS2 side, and you didn't know what you were going to get, and the result would be the result. But now that doesn't exist anymore. And he went as far as even saying, he pointed it out where he's like, Miami last year, that was still the team that you could look at and feel good about. But he said, you can't look at any team in either conference and feel good about a game anymore, which is a good thing for the fans and for us.
Yeah, and we'll chat about it a little bit later. The teams that are below the line, there are some brand names up in that issue at the moment. We're getting to the point now where transactions are becoming more common. There's a couple reasons for this. From a loaning standpoint, teams that are out of the Open Cup, be it MLS or USL, or teams that are about to enter into Leagues Cup, that's the point of the year where you need depth the most. Now, maybe you deal with a bunch of injuries and that moment never arrives. But the reality for most is that by the time you've been eliminated from your cup competition, and Jaeger Cup's a little bit different because they play on weekends. It's not intended to add more volume. It's meant to add more importance to the volume that already exists. But we're starting to see some of that movement from think Asel Asengay coming in from Galaxy to Phoenix. We're also starting to see teams reapportion their rosters. Combination of new coaches coming in may not like a certain player the same way a previous coach did. We're trying to free up some budget, or just you're 10 games in, maybe it's just not working, and that's okay. My point in all of this is we're starting to see maybe a little trickle from the dam in the old waiver wire and transaction list. Edwin Lazo is moving from Tulsa to Birmingham. 26-year-old Colombian, hadn't played a ton, 7 games for Tulsa. Birmingham also moving Luca Dorado on to Madison in League One. He'd been about a goal every, 2/3 of games, 43 and 69 at USF. So we're starting to see a little bit of movement. And then Zeke Soto going from Charleston to Greenville. U.S. Youth International, appeared in 5 games. Not quite there yet. It's not the Fidel Barajas. He got 3 games at the end of one season, and then he was Young Player of the Year. So he's making the move as well, going to get more minutes in League One at Greenville. Any of those 3 moves surprise you, move you?
Surprise, no. Move, maybe. The Lazo move from Tulsa to Birmingham, that could help out Birmingham in terms of midfield stability a lot for a team that, again, is looking for something like that, some sort of spark, some sort of shift where, look, you can't look at the attacking group that Birmingham has assembled this year and question it. I don't know that you can really question much about the team if you look at it on paper, except for, what can they do in that deeper midfield role and allow their creative players to be creative players instead of having to worry about, being box to box and things like that. So that's a move that A, he fits and he helps, and B, there's a cascading effect there where it helps out a lot of the others around him to be better and in better roles in their own rights. So that's the one that kind of intrigues me. Again, for a team that's sitting below the playoff line, that hasn't shown much, that only has to win in that one game after the coaching change, we need more than that. But that's one where memory bank it. He's not going to move the needle himself, but his impact on the others around him is going to help out.
Memory bank it. I like that line.
Yeah,
That's good.
use it, steal it.
All right. No, I'm not a thief. There are commentators that are thieves. I don't think I'm one of them. Joe Malfa's with me, Mike Watts on USL All Access, Devin walking the cat this week. We are approaching friendly season. We're starting to see some announcements. There's even been announcements about announcements. So Louisville City announcing that Frankfurt has qualified for UEFA Champions League is an announcement about an announcement. But that July friendly is a little more significant than it once seemed. Madison announcing they're going to have the Tigres under 23 team in. They announced that this week. And then, I just feel like this is worthy of some mention. The Coliseum hosting Mexico. Go ahead, bobble them.
Marshawn will be there, maybe. Maybe. I can't promise that, but who knows?
I hope so.
I hope so.
First week of September, Mexico and Japan. For one, I read the comments by a previous Mexico head coaching candidate who's not interested in doing promotional videos of any kind or tours that don't benefit the organization's soccer playing ambition. Okie dokie, point taken.
Yeah, he's gonna be elsewhere that day instead of at the Coliseum.
Oh man, all right, let's just finish this point real quick, and we're going back to that. That was like the best wordplay this show's ever had. The Coliseum's going to host Mexico and Japan first week of September. It moves a Roots game a couple of days. Good on everybody for getting that done. If you're the city of Oakland or you're the Roots, that is exactly the kind of event you're trying to host around your games in that building. If you're going to take that building, you have to find ways to make it work. And that should, all due respect to the Roots, be the highest selling game of the entire year for the Coliseum, which is awesome. Also, like if you're Mexico, are they ever going to play a friendly in Mexico ever again until the Azteca is done?
That's a great question. I was kind of surprised that it's gone this way, where I know they're loyal to that stadium, and that stadium is their stadium, but you got other stadiums, and we see it every year in Champions Cup and great environments. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I get it, expanding out to other portions of the fan base, but yeah, play in Monterrey or so. I don't know. You got other options.
I could not agree more. Go to the Steel Giant. By the way, I look at Louisville Frankfurt, and I love that matchup for a couple of reasons. They're playing that matchup again, and Frankfurt didn't have to do it. Louisville didn't have to do it. For one, I think you look at Lou City and Racing, for that matter, the building that they have there, they're probably in serious contention, if not a favorite, to be a team's training facility for the upcoming World Cup. And so bringing in a Bundesliga club in Champions League level and knowing what needs to be done, they could not have said better things coming out of it last year. You're also the level is different. It is like a Champions League team will make your jaw drop if you're an American soccer fan. And I love that they're playing up to that. Now they're also, I'm hearing going to have a second friendly against another Big Five country, European country team. So, it's not to say that's the only friendly they're going to have, but that matchup was really cool for me. And I imagine you're in the same boat because you've called a bunch of these friendlies too.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, it had the one with Devin a couple of years ago, RIP, San Diego Loyal against Dortmund. Like, that was fantastic. I mean, and Dortmund played its guys in that game where, I mean, the guys you see right now who have led this team back into European positions after they were kind of left for dead early in the season, those guys played in that game. We saw their top stars. It wasn't like they brought some sort of youth group to that game. And now this is a hot button topic because Gio Reyna seems to be on the way out of Dortmund, but like, it was even a cool moment where they had him interviewed on the field and the crowd got to hear him speak and like things like that, where there were just so many fun components about that game. And I even remember the first 20 minutes of that game, San Diego kind of played Dortmund off the park a little bit, where they were pressing, they were combining, they had chances, and Dortmund looked flustered. And after that, they completely went the other way. But for those 20 minutes, it was like, okay, like this is fun. We got something here. And I believe Ronaldo Damas had a couple of chances. It was looking dangerous, and it was fun to watch. And it's an experience for the fans. It's an experience for the players. Just what you gain from those games. And even just switching gears for a brief moment, one in particular that stuck out from last year was actually on the NWSL side where Bay FC played Barcelona. And coming out of that, their season completely changed after that game. And talking to their head coach, Albertine Montoya, he said he definitively traces their second half success, the later part of the season, to confidently playing that first half against Barcelona with starters against starters. And I believe they were down or up 2-1. I forget who was on top. It doesn't matter, but they were in a tight game. They got a goal in. They were playing well. And from that point on, their season was a success. So what it does psychologically more than anything else, going up against some of these teams, it could have a big impact. Even if you lose 5-0 on the day on the friendly, you could point to a 20, 30-minute stretch and say, hey, that's the team we can be. Let's be it.
Yeah, and I'm sure Louisville will find a way to put in some of those younger guys for a chance to figure some things out on a pretty huge stage. All right, Joe, before we go to break, I figured we'd go to our New Jersey correspondent for some late breaking news in the expansion front. Would you like to share?
Yes. Hinchcliffe Stadium, Paterson, New Jersey, League One pro team on the way. 2026 is what I believe the press release put out as the target. My backyard. I just Google Maps it a moment ago. My childhood home, which I'm going to visit in a couple of weeks for a wedding, 4.7 miles from Hinchcliffe Stadium. So USL has officially made its way into my backyard.
So it's a former Negro League venue from the 1920s and 30s, I think I've read. So, like, you're talking a 100-year-old venue, much like Hartford renovated theirs, as Al Lang was renovated. You can imagine that fits the game plan. Have you ever actually been to Hinchcliffe Stadium?
I have not. So it was never really, actually, to your point of like refurbishing it and reinvigorating it, it wasn't really used much when I was growing up. And even when I was still regularly home during the summers and breaks for college and stuff, it was only a couple of years ago that the New Jersey Jackals, an independent league baseball team, went from where they were playing at Yogi Berra Stadium in Montclair, New Jersey, moved to Hinchcliffe. So that was the first time they really like did a refurb and started having big time events there. That's all happened since I've moved away from Jersey. So no is the answer to that question. So maybe the first actual event I can go to at Hinchcliffe is next year at a USL game. How about that?
How about that? Bay Adolfo Wilson is the former deputy mayor of Newark, also real estate mogul. I think I'm using proper terminology here. So there's the financial muscle. And then in terms of the soccer side, former managing director at New York Red Bulls, former COO at New York Cosmos, Eric Stover is going to lead that element of the club. And so there's definitely a little bit of muscle there in Paterson already. All right, when we come back, plenty of results of note in the championship. Oakland gets a goal from their star, but not a win. Hartford, are they Louisville's bogey team? All that more coming up next here on USL All Access.
Let's get back to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC with Mike Watts and Devin Kerr.
Welcome back, everybody. It's USL All Access on this Tuesday evening. Miss ain't part of the show. It's available on the USL YouTube page tomorrow or on the SiriusXM app. Joe Malfa is with us this week. Devin is out. Mike Watts as well. Emmett's at the controls. How about we chat about some of the results from a week ago in the championship as we sort of move past that quarter pole, 1/3 point of the season. Remember, we're only going 30 games this year. Because Jägermeister Cup took 4 away, and that's the group stage for that event. How about we start with North Carolina and Oakland? The good news for Oakland is Jürgen Damm not only played, but he scored. Oakland fell behind 2-0, got one back, fell behind 3-1, got another one back, and then concede really late on, end up falling 4-2. Alex Anderson, the final goal of that game. Where do you think Oakland is at this stage? Because they have finally gotten their league form at a point where they were starting to rise a little bit, moving toward the playoff line. They're going to sit another week beneath 8th place.
The big thing I think right now for me for Oakland is just a matter of identity. I don't know that they have one, and that's a problem at this point of the season. Where do they want to be a team that plays three at the back and builds and is methodical? Do they want to be a team that plays direct and can find goals that way? It just feels if you put on an Oakland game, there is just a giant vacated U shape down the middle that kind of encompasses where the tens would be and where the striker would be. And there's just nothing there. It's just a vacuum. And they're struggling to score goals because of it. They have Peter Wilson who can play there, but drifts away from it. They went out and got Panos Armanakis and a couple other players who can fit that 10 role nicely. And they've used Sinistera there, and it's kind of worked. But there's been moments where they go away from that. It feels like last year and this year, to me, they've assembled a team of a lot of guys who play multiple positions, but they've kind of gotten into that sort of conundrum of jack of all trades, master of none, where, all right, just because this guy can play three positions, which one's his best and put him there. That's how I feel watching them and seeing some of their games this year, where they got to pick a lane and stick to it and have that be the identity. Stop with the constant change of the formation to the opponent. Just be you. Pick what you want to be and be you. And it's interesting because anytime that I've had a chance to talk to Gavin Glinton, he feels and seems like he has that pulse of what the team wants to be, but then the performance and the results don't sort of mimic that. So it's interesting as far as, what kind of maybe goes on behind closed doors. And some of it's just on the players, right? Like maybe he is communicating this is our identity, this is what I want to be, and the players just aren't executing it. So they've been an interesting watch where I think on their best day with the talent they have, they can play with anybody. But then I also called their game in Jägermeister Cup where they went and were pretty much played off the pitch against Spokane. So it's an interesting one right now where there's a lot of variance for them. And they seem to have stabilized in terms of the results there with 3 wins out of 4. But if you watched the Tulsa game, probably their worst performance of the season, but got a win. San Antonio was a gift on the fumble from the goalkeeper. But then the Orange County game, they looked like one of the top 5 teams in USL Championship. So I don't really know what to make of it yet.
No, and I look at their roster and 100%, because I asked this last year of Gavin, where it's like they could probably move any of 6 players in a circle in different positions and feel like you're Camden Riley's, I'm looking through the roster and I feel like it's probably a little bit more settled than it had been last year. And some of that comes with they made a coaching change midway through last year, and then you're jumbling everything and trying to figure out the right way to get results. And obviously for a long while there, they were. But yes, Sinistera can drop. Armanakis, I view him as a 10, but I also tend to see him touching chalk more than he is actually sitting in the middle of the field. Wilson's actually really pleasantly surprised me.
And that's been my point, though, where to your point about Panos touching chalk more than anything else, everybody that should be in the middle is not in the middle. And there's even been moments where Wilson, who's an out-and-out 9, is coming off the right wing. And I'm just looking at it there's a void there. They don't even have the option to play direct because there's literally nobody in a 30-yard radius from the opposing center backs to where your 10s would be. There's just nobody there.
Right, yeah. Oakland's still trying to figure some things out, I suppose. That's the kindest way of saying it.
Yeah.
Coming off a frustrating loss to North Carolina, that finished 4-2. El Paso, a 3-1 win over Indy over the weekend. Indy, they do get one late, but El Paso in control of the larger match. Moreno, Calvillo, DeRoma, all score. Wilmer's kind of got something going there. And let's not forget, they're 2 weeks removed from finding out the wrath of Austin, but also putting Austin to the sword for 60 minutes until they got their tails up and their fangs out. I always wanted to see what Wilmer's group would look like if he had the money to compete in a top 5-10 budget. And he finally does, and they look pretty good.
This is maybe one of my favorite under the radar. I don't even know if you could say under the radar anymore because they've started to do some good things, but one of my favorite under the radar teams in the league this year. Just the mix of players they have, veterans in this league, veterans period, and every piece fits. It's almost the opposite of the conversation we were just having about Oakland, where the pieces are there, but how do they all fit? Every piece on El Paso fits, and their only recent blemish was that loss to Birmingham that we referenced earlier in the first segment, where, yeah, sure, it was a team. You're on the road against a team that just made a coaching change. You're kind of ripe for the picking possibly in that game. I get it. That's how the sport works sometimes. Outside of that, I don't think you can go in or look at any game and say El Paso can't win that game. Every single game they're in, I don't want to say that they're favored, but like you can easily see, yeah, New Mexico, who they just beat 3-0. That's the first place team. They could win that game. Could they go into Charleston and win? Sure, I could see them going against Charleston and winning. Like, there's no team right now that I look at and say El Paso can't beat that team. Whether it's the talent or it's Wilmer tinkering with things, they can match up with anybody.
And let's not forget, right after Wilmer took over the club, they did go to Charleston and win.
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
was when he didn't have any of his RGV guys with him. And I say that half in jest because I get, if you're El Paso, I get it. You're sitting here like, wait, we're rooting for the team we used to hate. And basically you are, but you do have Amando Moreno. So, for all the up, there's still plenty of down in all that, I suppose. Whereas many new guys, you still have a taste of the past. All right, so El Paso coming off a good result against Indy, who, to be fair, struggling a tidge at this stage. Hartford, Louisville. I know I know you want to jump on this. Let's hit this for a moment.
Yeah, that always a bogey team thing. I doesn't.
That's my
well.
quote. I'll give a couple of quotes here.
Yeah.
Great point for Hartford. Let's start with that. They get a late goal from Edwards in the 88th. Philip Goodrum scored in the first half. Philip Goodrum used the term, "we lacked fire and passion." Manny Perez said that the team will look at it and take accountability. Danny Cruz put it quite simply, "we needed more." I look at Louisville, Hartford, and it always seems more difficult than it needs to be. They're a bogey team. That's my quote. What's your beef with that concept?
My beef with that concept is I don't like that we collectively in the media, and I've done this at times too myself. I admit to it, but I've started to hate myself for doing it in recent years as well. I don't want to keep giving good teams passes for overlooking lesser teams. And that's something that I feel over the last couple of years has been an issue for Louisville. And Danny has admitted this over the last couple, especially going back a couple of years when the 2022 season where they ended up having that road game against San Antonio, where they felt for sure they should have been a top seed. They should have been hosting. If it's a final play in Louisville, maybe they win it. And looking back on that year and even the subsequent years, there's games against teams that are clearly lesser than them that they should win, and they don't win. 2023, it happened a couple times against Loudoun. Well, Loudoun was different than they are now. And last year it happened as well. Stop. I don't like it. I get it. Sometimes history against the team says something, but to Kudrum's point about lack fire and passion, to Manny Perez taking accountability, to Danny Cruz saying we needed more. Yes, you needed more. You're a team right now that's undefeated, that should probably run away with first place when all is said and done, because I do think Loudoun will take a step back, although Charleston's there now too and in terrific form. How do you make sure you end up in first? Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Hartford is not a bad team. Hartford is definitely below the playoff line and one of the quote-unquote lesser teams we've seen so far this year. Not an easy team to play against, but a team Louisville should beat. That's all.
They should. To me, it's not about the jersey. To me, it's more about styles make fights. And the Hartford, we're going to run you to death, and it can be chaos. And Louisville operates like such a Swiss watch at times that them operating in a chaotic environment, while it shouldn't lead to lack of motivation, and I think that's the bigger issue. I want to say probably 5 times over the last year and a half, we've just heard that, hey, we need to go put our nose to the grindstone again with Louisville, or we weren't good enough, and the occasional we didn't have the requisite amount of fire to get this job done. And I imagine next week they will. But Hartford plays this chaotic game, which is not to Louisville's benefit, and then and they do have talent to make you pay for it. And then there's just this element of, I don't know if it's their noses up or what, but for whatever reason, Hartford just isn't their ish.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not
I'll give you
their
that
ish.
part of it. I'll give you that part of it. But I just for at this point now, there's an expectation for Louisville. They've set it for themselves. They continue to uh, match it year over year. Where I'm just tired of the moments where it seems like they come out lacking something against teams that are not as good as them. And I don't mean that as a slight toward Hartford. Anybody who's objective about it looks at Hartford, looks at Louisville. Hartford's not as good as Louisville, and it's not really close. So it's just there's these moments where Louisville just switches off, and that just continues to be their downfall. And even last year, the one home loss they had was against Rhode Island in the regular season, and then ultimately they played a very different Rhode Island team in the playoffs. So when they ended up losing there, but that was still there at the time. Rhode Island still wasn't doing anything. Rhode Island was still stuck in low gear below the playoff line, a team that had like 8 or 9 ties already, and that was Louisville's only home loss of the season. Where there's just moments where they switch off. And Danny, I'm sorry, but there's just I've grown tired of these moments where I see you guys dip against bad teams. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how Louisville bounces back. I'm optimistic. That game, of course, a 1-1 draw. Charleston 4-0 over San Antonio. Penalty and an own goal broke it open. Cal Jennings has scored twice more. Charleston flies alongside Loudoun, top of the Eastern Conference. Rhode Island, Tampa Bay probably deserves a little bit more of a mention on paper than where we're at right now. This is two teams beneath the line going into the weekend. Holstad, Erevo, and Fuson all score. Lawrence Wyke actually got sent off about 15 minutes remaining. He'll miss the Lexington game next week. Tampa Bay's in shambles. That's they probably need to figure out the coach sooner than later. Rhode Island, that was a win they had to have. I get that you had to play a bunch of games on the road to begin, including this one for that matter. It's time to start picking up ye rosebuds. I don't think it would be unfair to say that this is a team that's a second half team year after year, because we only have 2 years. One's an expansion and one they're building a venue, and they spent the first 2 months on the road. But they need to go prove that they have that gear in them again, and then they need to make sure this doesn't happen anymore.
Twice is enough. Twice is enough.
It's going to affect you at the end eventually. The fact that it worked out last year, I don't think anyone views that as the way to go to a final. And there's a gap that's beginning to build between those top couple of seeds and everybody else.
Yeah.
And while you did go on the road and get it done, they're going to need – I mean, this is a result they had to have from you need to start building points to try and climb up the table.
To be fair, this is how the Seattle Sounders have done it for a decade, where they're poor for a month or two, and then they end up finishing in the top 2 anyway. So I guess to your point, they could continue doing it if they wanted to, Rhode Island. Probably not in their best interest, but they could get away with it if Seattle's done it for a decade. But yeah, I trust them to be okay. That core is still intact. They still got talent. Tampa Bay on the other side, woof. But Rhode Island, they'll be fine.
Yeah. Phoenix 2-0 over Monterey Bay. Skiers and Flood both score. Notable that Flood's even back. So he got
notable the goal he scored. The goal he scored was fantastic. So
correct. So while existing on the field is good, I love Ryan Flood. And I actually got an email from his dad once like, hey, thanks for saying nice things about my son. But the reality is, first off, the fact that I don't think Danny Stone sees it. So Danny moves him on loan to Orange County and then takes over at Orange County and instantly sends it back to Phoenix. For whatever reason, that relationship just it doesn't fit within the system. That's completely fine. But the guy's electric and has played whatever wide position he's been asked, and whenever he plays, he seems to do stuff. So I guess I'm just saying I'm a Ryan Flood fan. Monterey drop into a 4-way tie for second. They're all on 16 points, second through fifth place. Phoenix is getting healthier, including, of course, the aforementioned Flood. They're tied for sixth place with Sacramento. Anything to add on where either of those teams are at? Because it looks like Phoenix getting healthy on the rise. Monterey has played more games than everybody, and it to me, it's always been a depth thing. They were right here last year too.
Yeah, nothing to add. Give me 3 more weeks. Let me see how things kind of stabilize for both these teams, and I'll know more. I don't think it's small sample size in terms of the ups and downs for both teams so far, where I think we won't really know, especially Phoenix being a younger team, we won't know if they're truly good for another 3-4 weeks. We won't know if Monterey is truly on the struggle bus for 3-4 more weeks.
All right, so how about we chat about a couple other results over the weekend with Joe Malfa here on USL All Access, Mike Watts as well. Birmingham, Detroit finishes 1-1. Kavita off a corner deflected by Jake Roof. Birmingham more of the ball, chances about even. Birmingham take a point at home. Tulsa, 2-0 win over Lexington. Tulsa ends up getting their second one late to ice the game. Calhera penalty at 41, and then Batista late. Then there's the blowout. The one game that got utterly and completely out of hand. And I know we had a 4 and a 3-0 this weekend, but this one was pretty extraordinary. Sacramento 5, Las Vegas 0. Neil Collins haters, eat your heart out. 5 shots on target, 5 goals, efficient from Sacramento. Herrera, Gerd, Jameson, Ross from the spot, and Trevor Ammon gets one too. Couple storylines out of this. For one, Trevor Ammon scored the week prior as well, so maybe he's out of the doghouse, could not find his way on the field for the first 2 months of the year. They're as healthy as they've been. Gurr, of course, Nick Ross. And then there's the Las Vegas side. How about we start with Sacramento? You were never worried, right?
No, never worried. Never worried. It was very clearly a team that wasn't healthy. And to your point about Trevor as well, to my understanding, he did have a slight knock, and then an illness hit the team right around the week prior to their Open Cup against San Jose. That it took some guys some time to get over. And I believe he was in that camp. Don't quote me on that. But in chatting with Neil recently ahead of this game, actually, he was talking about Trevor getting back up to full speed, and then going back to the conversation that I had with Neil before that Open Cup game that I called. It was the same thing. So whether he was always available, it seemed, on the benches, but it didn't ever feel or seem like he was 100%. Either way, he's back now. He's scoring now. Neil was praiseful of him, and he looks fantastic, and he naturally fits kind of what they're trying to do there, obviously. The health was always the big thing, right? Like, if you look at the schedule they played, first of all, it was a tough schedule based on the opponents early in the season. Then you're mixing into that the health. And it was not only just missing guys, period. The guys that were healthy weren't healthy enough to go 90 or to go 60 or to give them enough. So it was hurting them in both ways, where either guys were missing or the guys they had weren't healthy enough to go or the whole time or to give them what they usually give them. So they were very much in a bad way. Very clear that they were going to have the turnaround. Kind of makes sense that the turnaround happened against this team in this moment as well.
Yeah, I had Vegas 2 weeks ago. I know you called this game. They're boring. I'm trying to fit better words into. I mean, they'd all be square pegs and round holes. It's just, yeah.
For the people who are viewing us on YouTube or in some capacity, I'm holding up a book that you can see. For the ones that aren't, I will verbal that it is a history of calcio book that I have on my shelf here. And for those of you who are familiar, the Italians, very good at winning tournaments. Very good at winning tournaments because of the boring defensive style that they play. Can you do that for a 30-game regular season? Can you do that and satisfy a fan base that saw a very different style of play last year under Dennis Sanchez, who's now taken that to New Mexico? Can you continue to keep players like Valentin Noel happy, who had 17 goal contributions last year, has 2 this year, and is basically asked to be a defensive midfielder at this point instead of having the reins cut loose and letting him do what he can do? Yeah, not a fun team to watch. Don't know if it could last 30 games. Don't mean to insinuate that Nocerino is getting canned or anything. When I say can't last, I just mean at some point, does the stubbornness and desire to play his way end up doubling back to, okay, you know what? I've got all these great attacking pieces that were fantastic last year. Let's just let them actually play for a little bit.
Yeah, I spoke to Antonio a couple weeks ago, and let's lead with this. He has more in his pinky finger football knowledge
100%, yeah,
than both of us combined. The mad respect. And I go back to the beginning of the year. I said, look, whatever you saw in Miami is not what you're going to see in Vegas, because he didn't have the pieces. he spoke to me quite a bit about, one, what's the object of the game? To score more goals than the opponent. So, like, very much a tournament approach. That's the object.
But there's different ways of looking at that. You've got teams who will say, yeah, let's win a 3-1 game. 1 is still more than 0, and that is clearly their approach, where he's not lying, he's not wrong, but it's clear that his vision is we score 1, they score none, and that's a win, which is not wrong. So
yeah, I look at the other half of that conversation, which largely centered around we understand, he and his staff, the league better, and we're understanding our personnel better. If you look at the personnel they have, cut it loose just a little bit more. You will not see me haranguing Las Vegas for dropping a 4-3 result if they open this thing up a little bit. But 5-0 and fish in a barrel in Sacramento. And don't get me wrong, they paid for every transgression in this game. But
yeah, it was bad luck, a lot of it, but still, I mean, every little thing was exploited by Sacramento. But to your point, like, cut it loose. All right, maybe you're not throwing complete caution to the wind, but something, like just something, because the way they're playing right now, I was on the call with Gary Bailey, and we kind of looked at each other, and we started having the conversation on the air. Once it was 1, and then once it was 2, you got the sense the snowball was coming, because it happened a few weeks back against Tulsa. The interesting thing right now for Raiko Rosarena, who was in goal for this game again, coming into the day, had started 6 games, had only allowed 4 goals this season, had 5 clean sheets because it just snowballed in the one game against Tulsa. When you break the seal on this Vegas team and they have to open a little bit and play from behind, so far, they can't. So
right.
It's just putting all your eggs in one basket right now, where we're either conceding 0 or 1 and taking 3 points or 1, or we're getting blown out. So that's a balance they'll probably have to strike. And I don't mind, and Gary said this on the air, I don't mind it this point this season, 2 months in. Figure out your defensive and then build through the attacking phase in the summer and let that be your next evolution. Sort out the defense first. But we do have to see that change at some point. At some point, that next step has to come, and they haven't shown it yet.
Yeah, and we spoke about it last week, that Colorado Springs Las Vegas game, which had all the feels in the Western Conference Finals, was a dud. Hopefully there is a next evolution for Las Vegas. All right, when we come back, Devin and I promised, and we weren't kidding, whether championship teams or just one team or none at all are in the Open Cup, we're going to continue to talk about America's tournament. It's on CBS Sports Tuesday and Wednesday. Joe may already be busy right now as this is airing. We'll chat about the week that is the round of 16 in the Open Cup as soon as we come back here on USL All Access.
Giving insight to all the biggest moments in Championship and League One. This is USL All Access on SiriusXM FC with Mike Watts and Devin Kerr.
We're back here on USL All Access. Joe Malfa is getting a big a gallon-size extra virgin olive oil for coming in for the show this week. Mike Watts here as well, who's had enough olive oil for one lifetime. Joe, let's chat about the Open Cup. Before we get there is plenty of action here on the channel this coming weekend, not the least of which Saturday night here on SiriusXM FC, live from the Coliseum in Oakland. It is the Roots taking on New Mexico United. You can catch it right here on SiriusXM FC, channel 157. All right, there are 2 matches tonight. San Jose and Portland are the late game, CBS Sports Network, 10:30 p.m. You've got New England and Chicago. Do you care to look into a crystal ball of a game that you are already actively calling?
Yes. I can't go too deep because I know too much, and I don't want to. I don't want to spill the beans of anything that have come away from the chats that I had with Greg Berhalter and with Caleb Porter. I expect it to be, and maybe you have this on a second screen right now as you're listening to this, but I expect it to be a good environment. I'll go with that because they're playing this one at Providence College, going away from Gillette and getting into the community, and they're expecting a very good crowd, intimate setting, 5,000-seat venue, and there was an intent in that. They wanted to sort of replicate seeing what Seattle has done all these years at Starfire, and they kind of wanted to replicate that instead of having it in a cavernous Gillette Stadium. So environment should be fun as you're watching this. And Chicago last round, they were very clear in their directive. They played a unit against Detroit City, and Detroit City learned that. Greg Berhalter has talked in the open media about the value for this tournament and wanted to go for it. So that'll be a fun team to watch going through. New England's a tough team to make heads or tails of because they're so limited in terms of just the injuries and stuff that they have going on. So they're a giant question mark coming into this game that's already happening. So we'll see how it is when it's already happening. But this should be a fun one. They've got history. Chicago has won this tournament 4 times. Tied for the most among MLS teams. New England won it once. These teams actually went back-to-back. New England won it 06. Chicago won it 07. So plenty of history in the Open Cup as well.
Dare I say that game is fire. Elsewhere in the round of 16 tomorrow, Orlando coming off their drubbing of Miami, taking on Nashville. DC United, who probably this is the prize that they have to play for this year against Charlotte, Minnesota, and St. Louis. Austin and Houston, Texas, derby that very well, I mean, Houston had to go to Phoenix. Austin had to fight back El Paso, a fun one. The early game in the window before we get to Philly and Pittsburgh is Red Bull and Dallas on CBS Sports Network. You're on the call for that one. I'm actually pretty excited about that game. Not the least of which, like, if Lucho wants to go and give this a go with Dallas, I want to see it.
I'm amped for this game because this is one of those games where both coaches, Sandro Schwartz for the Red Bulls, Eric Quill for Dallas, love this tournament. They're both in positions with their respective teams where they'll probably be mid-table-ish and playoff team probably, but if they want Champions Cup, it's probably going to have to come through this avenue. And they're 4 games away. The lineups for both teams last round were excellent. There's not many coaches or teams who would have played Lucho Acosta against the 3rd Division AV Alta side. We love you under the USL umbrella, Alta, but you learned against Lucho Acosta in that game. How many MLS teams would play those guys against a 3rd Division team? Not enough, probably, is the answer to that question. And the Red Bulls also went with a full group on the road against Colorado Springs in what was a very fun game the last round as well. So you got 2 teams who need this tournament, who want to win this tournament, and who are this will be MLS roster on MLS roster. Don't expect any rotation here between these 2 teams. They'll be going all out, and it's going to be a fun game.
Yep. All right, and then there's the big one as USL is concerned. Only one team outside of MLS made it through last round. As Devin and I spoke about, let's not overreact the same way. It was a lot of fun, but we shouldn't have overreacted the last few years. Cup sets are the point of the tournament, but there's a reason that they are unique. Philly hosting Pittsburgh tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, Paramount Plus. If you're the Hounds, a chance to go to another quarterfinal. I'm optimistic if Pittsburgh can avoid the oh my God mistake that they'll take this to the finish line. Whether they will cross it first, I don't know. But I do think they're up for it. Is Philly going to bring their absolute best team? If so, that certainly, as always, changes the dynamic. But I am intrigued to see whether Pittsburgh's up for the fight. I imagine that they are.
And nerd out for this one. The matchup of Riley Carnell and Bob Lilly is a fun one.
Yes.
Because those 2 playing chess against each other, sign me up for that. It was a great quote post-match from Bradley Carnell in his post-game press conference against Atlanta from this past week when Philly won, ended up getting in first place because of it. He said afterwards that I forget the exact wording, but he knew that Atlanta would be expecting one thing. They came out a totally different way and shifted 3 times in the game. He admitted it afterwards in the post-game press conference. We showed them 4 formations, 4 completely different looks. It kind of sounds like Bob Lilly. I mean, you've been around this league, long enough, Mike, to know that nary do they play the same lineup. Nary do they play the same formation back-to-back games, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. So this will be a fun one to watch from that perspective as well.
Yeah, and if you're Pittsburgh fans, last Saturday and this coming Saturday, relax. Irrelevant. They're willing to pay the 2-game toll to feature in this event and have a chance at the quarterfinals. All right, when we come back, we'll tell you the game you need to watch this week. It's next on USL All Access.
You're listening to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC. Here are your hosts, Mike Watts and Devin Kerr.
We are back on USL All Access on this Tuesday night. Miss a part of the show available on the SiriusXM app as well as the USL YouTube page tomorrow. Let's remind you that the USL is on TUDN in Spanish, Detroit and Charleston, Saturday, 4 p.m. It's also available in English on ESPN+. Charleston looking to extend that lead atop the East. Detroit, with a win, could move within a point of Charleston and potentially Loudoun as well, who are tied on that 21 points. All right, there is one Jaeger Cup game this week, Knoxville and Indy. Jaeger Cup really returns in mass next week. Best game in the championship this coming week. Do any of them speak to you?
The easy, low-hanging fruit is the Detroit City-Charleston game. I don't think anybody would really argue that. So I'm going to go away from that just to give some sort of variance. And pulling back the curtain, we have a rundown here for the folks at home. And I'm actually going to go off the board for a game that's not on the list of the possibilities you threw here. I'm actually very excited for this Oakland-New Mexico game because New Mexico, first of all, should be a great environment at the Coliseum. You can catch that game on SiriusXM FC 157, by the way. It's an Oakland team that we talked about earlier, trying to figure out its identity. It's a New Mexico team that is sitting in first, fun to watch under Dennis Sanchez. I think that one's a sneaky game where it could be open, it could be fun, the crowd could be into it. And it's an important game because Oakland's a team that's trying to get closer to or above the playoff line in a very tight Western Conference, and New Mexico's setting the pace.
No doubt. I'm actually going, it's on the board, but it's off the board. Lexington, Tampa Bay. Someone has to win that game.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I know. The gap is growing for the two teams at the bottom, and they have way too much talent. That's not a toilet bowl. That's not a bad game. They're in bad form. It's not a bad game. All right, let's close with this, Joe. There are 4 teams, obviously, beneath 8th place in each conference. Colorado Springs, Oakland, Orange County, and Lexington. The gap from bottom to 8th is 5 points. Are you worried any of them are going to miss the playoffs?
Biggest worry, I think, is Lexington, which is the easy answer because they're in last and furthest away. If you talk to Terry Boss, you're ready to run through a wall for the guy and you feel good about the team, but it's just not clicking. Whatever it is, they're very reminiscent of early season Rhode Island last year. Rhode Island turned it around. Lexington certainly could, but with the way things are shaping up in the West, it could get away from them pretty quickly.
I'm going to give you Oakland on that for a lot of the reasons we spelled out earlier. All right, Eastern Conference, that's Indy, Birmingham, Hartford, and Tampa Bay. The gap from 8th to 12th is just 4 points. Is the easy answer Tampa Bay?
I think so. And to a surprise to some, I'll pat myself on the back, not to me. Before the season started, sat down with some colleagues, being Gary Bailey, Ricky Lopez-Espin, and we put our teams before the season of who wouldn't make the playoffs. I put Tampa Bay on that list. I was looked at like I had 3 heads, and the cracks that I saw have been completely amplified, and they're in a very bad way.
All right, Joe, did you learn anything this week?
I learned that the fact that I don't like tomatoes will never leave me, and it will always hang over me as a dark cloud.
Yep, and I learned that if you put coleslaw up in this ish, Joe's going to talk to you about, mayonnaise and flip it gross. All right, it's gross. All right, for Joe, Devin, who's not with us this week, should be back next week. Emmett, Mike, thanks for listening, watching. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday night. So long, everyone.
This is USL All Access. If you missed any portion of the program, listen back anytime on the SXM app.